Hello, my wire warriors. Today we are going to be going through the heart wrap, and since I couldn't decide which stone I wanted to wrap for you, I picked out a few, and then I realized that I could probably do some variations on the standard heart wrap design that I have and that we had practiced in class. This one is an agate from Sumatra, and it's got a nice little druzzy pocket here. It's got the most beautiful patterns, little orbs, crystals underneath the surface, and the back is really beautiful too. So we're going to do a slight variation of the design so we don't cover up too much of the back or the front, and that'll also give you an alternate way to wrap the stone. The labradorite we're going to do in the design we practiced in class, and I started a couple of frames, put them on the side so we can pop these stones in and out, and I can show you some different variations. This third one that I'm going to be showing you is an amethyst, and a chevron amethyst that's got it's cut on an angle so the striations go in this direction. Okay, so let's get started. For this project, we will need, of course, our cutters. I have with me here both bent nose as well as regular flat nose needle nose pliers, your round nose pliers, and I have pin vise for these little design elements that we're going to be doing just to twist the wires for that little diamond cut effect that we have on top. Okay, so I'm going to get these things out of the way and we're going to get started. All right, so we're going to start with our standard, the heart wrap design that I have under my tutorials list. Okay, so we're going to start with this one. It's going to be this labradorite. Since this stone has some hints of gold in it, I found it goes really well with the vintage bronze parawire. We're going to be using the vintage bronze square parawire, and that's in 21 gauge. For the binding, we're going to be using the 21 gauge half round vintage bronze wires. And for the other stones I have, we're going to use the same gauges, but we will be using the antique copper wires for the other two stones. All right, so to get started, we measure out our stone and cut out the square wires. Now, I've mentioned this in my previous videos as well. Let me get the tools out of the way. I have these markings along the side of my mat. So that's like a really quick, easy reference when I'm doing inch references. One way to measure out your wires would be either to use a piece of scrap wire or a thread or a piece of yarn and just kind of measure around the stone and see how much you need. And then you would roughly translate that and put that into how much wires you need. So about this much is the perimeter of that stone. Another way to do it would be to either just roll it directly around the wire, and then so you start at the tip like that, and then you kind of roll it. This is what I tend to do sometimes, and then you come back to that tip so you have one length of the wire. Another way to do it would be to roll it. Like I tend to do this more often than not. So you find the inch marker and then you just kind of roll it, and then you have the number of inches, and then you would translate that into how much wire you need. So for this particular design, we need 3 lengths of the perimeter of the wire. For this one, it's about 11 inches. I've given myself a little bit extra because the design that we're going to do is going to have the bail coming up, and then it's going to have the wire going around and coming to the front. So I've given myself about 3 lengths of the perimeter of the wire around the stone and a little bit extra for the bail. So let's get started. Initially, we just need to first straighten out your square wires. Since this particular one came off the spool really nicely with no kinks and wasn't like very tight, I don't need the nylon jaw. The square edges are pretty straight. So I'm just going to use my fingers to warm them up. Again, it's 4 lengths of about 3 times the perimeter of your stone. Plus, I've given it about 1.5 inches for designing and bail, just in case we run over a little bit. 3 times should cover you. Again, these are nice soft wires, and they warm up really nicely and straighten out. Okay, and the fourth one, they don't have to be super straight, but straight enough so that the square sides stack against each other. Because you want, when you start the binding, as always, like I've mentioned in all of my videos, you need to have them stacked right next to each other, square side to square side. We're going to be using about 7 inches of the half round wire. Now, if you look carefully, there is a flat side to this wire and a rounded side. The rounded side, you can feel it, and also it catches the light just a little bit differently. It looks like a lot thinner on that side, whereas the flat side will catch obviously more of the wire and make your wire look a little thicker on one edge. So if you see that, that's the flat side. The flat side goes against the square frame wires. So your base wires or your framing wires are these 4 lengths of square vintage bronze 21 gauge para wire, and your half round wire with the flat side down towards the wrap. Give me 1 second, let me just grab that straight. Can't see that clearly there. So the flat side goes to the flat side of the binding. I'm going to zoom that in a little bit. Right there. Give yourself about 1 inch of tail, and roughly in the center you go up and pull it nice and firm and come around. Now when you're pulling it firm, you don't want to pull it so tight that this is what you get. You don't want that to happen. You want those wires to sit right next to each other, just like that. Okay? As you come around, pull it nice and firm, and you can use your flat nose nylon jaw, or I'm using these tweezer nose pliers. Just flatten it down just like that. Again, go up, pull firm, not too tight, around, up and around. And since I was messing around with that first one, it's just come out a little bit looser than I needed to, so I'm going to pull it around again, tighten that right there. I'm going to squish these together with my pliers and very gently tap them down so they're nice and flat. Again, when you're making them flat, if you have a loose wrap there, it's going to bubble, and you don't want that to happen. Have your wraps go as close to each other as possible. As you come down, try to keep straight your wires straight. You can at every turn just kind of do this so that your wires remain nice and straight with no kinks. And what we're aiming for is at least 1/2 inch of binding around the tip on both sides. I started one frame to kind of, so you have a reference of what I'm talking about. So you see on the sides of this amethyst, you have about just roughly over 1/2 inch on each side. That's what we're aiming for. As you go, you can keep pushing it so it's nice and centered. Gently tap it down. If there's a little gap, squish that together from both sides, and keep your wraps nice and even. As you go, keep smoothing that wire. Go up and around, pull firm, up and around, up and around, and every 2 or 3 wraps or so, just squish them together. Again, you can use your nylon jaw pliers, you can use a flat nose plier, anything that does not have a serrated edge. You want these edges to be nice and flat and smooth so you don't mark your wires. Okay. if you're watching so far, just stop, say hello. Let me know where you found me, how you came across my channel, and where you're from. All right, so we're just gonna end this on this side, and we're gonna go back here and use up the rest of this wire as well, up and around, and we're going to end both sides of the wire on the same side. So lift that edge up slightly. You can take your shears or your regular cutters and just cut it, holding the tip so you're not going to have the wires flying around. Okay, gently tap, 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 and make that sort of sense. So this is going to be the inside of your wire. This binding will still move a little bit, and that's okay. You want to kind of center that. And so that's the inside. You see where both the wires are cut on this side, and that's the outside. We're just going to squish that nice and tight together. And what we want to do is with the cut side facing you, you can take your pliers, come just a little bit off center, and then bend it so you have about similar amount of binding on each side of that wire. This is just a little bit off. I'm just gonna squish that together and tap it down. You don't want too sharp of a bend just yet. We're gonna be putting in the design details, just so that's how it's gonna sit. It's about even on each side, which is what you're looking for. All right, before we go any further, we're going to now put in the design details and lift up the top wire on each side, and we're going to be twisting these wires. Okay, so take your pin vise and put it. It's a little difficult to do this here, but okay. So put that through, tighten it nice and tight. For this particular piece, because it's got a bit of a bend and it's not going to pull out the wires, I'm just going to hold it with my fingers on the other side. You can use a pair of pliers, hold it right there if you're going to be using a pair of pliers to hold the bindings together. But I'm just going to be doing that by hand, and then you just twist it. This is a hand drill. It's sometimes advertised online as a hand drill. You'll sometimes see it referred to as a pin vise. I want some really nice tight twists over here, and like you can see, just as compared to this wire, you'll see how the twisted wire just gives a bit of that diamond cut effect. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side to the top of that wire. And put that in nice and tight. Oops. There you go. And twist it. So you have about the same amount of twists on each side. There you go. Okay, undo that, get it out, and we're going to start gently putting some bends, just turn it just gently around it, because it's going to be molding around the heart now. Okay, so instead of just going like this and having all the wires twist, if you start by putting some nice gentle bends, it just helps you mold that wire that much better. It still sits nice and even and warms up the wire for the next step. Now, next, what we're going to do is we're going to be taking the back side. So remember with the other ones where I've told you, identify your wires as 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth wire, which is the back wire, we'll just twist it like so. You can take your needle nose pliers, or again, like if you have a flat nose plier you want to use, and after you've bent it right about there, we're going to put a little gentle bend in it like that. Okay, what we're doing is creating a seat for that stone to sit on, and not fall out the back. So you're giving it that little support on the back. Same thing on the other side. We're going to go in, gently lift up wire number 4, curl it inwards, and at about the same thickness on this side too, we're going to bend that, and it's going to come around like so. And now your stone's going to sit really nicely right there. Okay? Just like so. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start binding the top of this. So we're going to come around this way, still putting those gentle curls and turning this side upwards, and then coming in, putting in these gentle curls and turning this away. So you have the two sets of wires, the framing wires coming in. You're kind of identifying them as the left or the right wire. Now just center your stone really nicely, adjust any curls. I want to make that bend a bit sharper because it's kind of rounded. I want to make that bit a bit sharper, so I'm going to go back in with my pliers and make that like a nice sharp bend on each side. So it's not rounded on the base. Okay. And then you put it back in, seated. I think that looks good. And then you come around